also clear.
What about your question at lunch? That was a good question.
Yeah, I was telling Paula when she was talking about bodhicitta. She said there is no possible feel compassion to everybody if you don't embrace or feel properly your own pain. And I told her that I feel very struggling with that. Don't feel open heart to feel myself or something like that. Because of fear or because I think I have to be always happy or things like that. Ideas you have in your mind that how you should be, feel. And I know there is a lot, but no, I don't feel brave enough.
To do what?
To deal with my own pain. And always when I get angry, it's a pattern in my life. No? When I get angry, no, I shouldn't be angry. Things like that, no? Make you angry.
So, say a little bit more about it. But I mean, that's the job, isn't it? I think. I don't know. I mean, does anyone want to disagree with me about that?
No.
You can, you know, but so the question is, how do we develop an open heart, right? How do we do that? How do we get the courage to do that?
Thank you.
Right?
The question in
Isn't that the question though? Well, that's a very interesting discussion topic. What do you think, Fiona?
Yeah, I do think it's very scary, and we pretty much do anything to avoid that. Most people, and stepping into the unknown, and that's why you need courage.
Where does the courage come from?
I think it comes from a combination of faith and I think love for yourself, actually, the desire to heal.
Yeah, and also I think being fed up with suffering. You know, somehow you make some connection between the fact that my suffering is because I'm not allowing myself to let go of this shit, right? Yeah. Right? I mean, you've been through a lot. That's why I asked you, you know, because you have some experience with that, so.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the sort of the renunciation. Where it ties in with.
Well, I think renunciation really means loving yourself. You know, it's not loving yourself, which is how a lot of people interpret it. You know, a lot of people think that the harder they are on themselves, the more renounced they are, you know, but I don't think it's like that.
I think sometimes it comes from compassion. You know, if somebody's suffering arouses real compassion, then the ego gets out of the way. And it's possible to open up in that way sometimes. So somebody, somebody touches you.
And I just suggest, sorry for interrupting, but I think when we perhaps start on this path, you know, kind of awareness of compassion towards others is really pivotal. But then often people can slide into sort of a spiritual, what's it called?
Materialism?
No.
Spiritual?
It is. But when you kind of obfuscate.
Yeah. No, there is a word for it.
Spiritual.
What is the word?
Yeah, I'll remember it.
Yeah, I will too. I'll think about
Bypassing.
it. Bypassing, yeah, spiritual bypassing.
And what they keep on missing is that all sentient beings, first of them, the closest one to us, is ourselves. So often people start to kind of develop this very pretentious attitude of compassion towards each other, where they're in themselves lacking self-love. So I think it has to be really careful game with that, so we are not starting to become blind to our own self-suffering. Because if we can't supply freedom to ourselves, certainly we shall not liberate anybody else. Would be my encounter.
That's right. That's what we were. That's kind of what the basis of this, and how, but I think the question is we all understand that, but what are the first steps you take? You know, how do you begin to address the pain that you have in your heart, right? I really like Pema Chodron's books. I don't know if you've read Pema Chodron's books, but she speaks a lot about that. And I think that, well, first of all, you have to have the wish, you know. And then I think taking refuge is really important. Because when you have refuge in something bigger than yourself, and you can give it up to something bigger than yourself. So I think it comes down again to refuge and bodhicitta. When you have a wish, when you really begin to understand what that means to benefit sentient beings, some courage comes with that. You know, that's why these practices like this Green Tower practice is actually helpful, because I think that it, on a subtle level, it begins to empower you and give you that courage because of the power of the refuge itself. But what Pema Chodron talks about is just, and it's actually what Chogyam Trungpa talks about, because that's where she got everything from, is, well, her own wisdom too, but I think it just, you have to give yourself a lot of space. You know, like we fill our lives up with busyness all the time, and that's why we started this morning with just that simple breathing meditation, because that's how you give yourself the space to begin to let those things come out, you know. And also to not avoid, we get caught up in being good Buddhists and good people, and so when you know, anger comes up or jealousy comes up, it's like, oh, I can't have that, you know, and so then you just squish it, and that doesn't do anything to get rid of it. What's more important is to give it a lot of space and just let it be there if possible, without, I mean, a lot of times, I mean, you don't have the luxury to sit down and go, oh, I'm angry right now, I'm going to sit and feel this, you know, but if you, the thing about doing the sitting practice, when you're not angry, you're not upset, you're creating that space. It's kind of a big, wide open space. As long as, like I was saying this morning, when you do your sitting practice, it has to be within an environment of self-acceptance and self-love. You have to create that inner refuge first. You know, it's like a home. It should be, there should be, like Soga Rinpoche talks about, he does something, I can't remember, it was a long time ago, but he does something like, he goes like going home, you know, like your meditation practice should be going home, which is why refuge and bodhicitta are so important. One of the most important parts is that you have to create this experience of, okay, I have faith in this outer manifestation, but it's really nothing. I mean, everything's coming from my mind, you know. I mean, there might be something out there, there is, but it's me that's creating it. And so we are the creators of our universe. We are the creators of our experience. And so I remember I was reading something just the other day by Matthew Ricard, and he was saying these are skills. You know, we're not naturally born aware. We're not naturally born compassionate. We're not naturally born altruistic. We're not naturally born loving ourselves. They're skills that we have to work on. And just like learning to play the piano or learning to do yoga or learning to, it's a skill that just take a little bit of time every day to just sit down. And even if you're beginning, you have to just make it up. But just imagine that this is what, for me, this is kind of what refuge is. You just imagine that I'm surrounded in a loving, spacious environment, and whatever comes to me is okay in this place. You know, there's got to be a safe place where you can let all your demons out of the closet, and they don't have to hide anymore. So it's a skill to create that inner environment within yourself, and it just takes sitting down and deciding that's what I'm going to do. You know, I'm just going to sit here every day and just breathe. And if you want to, you can, you know, do the Tara practice. But you're just going to breathe and just learn to have that inner place where stuff can come up and you can look at it without judging it, without necessarily accepting it, not really rejecting it, but just letting it be there. And then surrounding it in love. And then slowly, slowly, you know, it's not going to come naturally, and it takes time to develop it, but slowly, slowly you'll create real refuge, which is an inner experience, you know. And then more things come out and more things come up, and the more you get, and you know, the Tonlin practice, you know, that practice where you breathe in love and breathe, you just do that for yourself. You know, you just think about love, think about somebody you love that makes you actually feel love, so it's not just a dry thing, you know, but think about love and just like because, I mean, there's nobody out there making us feel love. Love comes from us, you know, and so you can learn to just generate love without having to have somebody to make it happen. You know, you can be your own love generator. If you just have to, it's just a skill that you can learn to just sit and, I mean, I think Lama Yeshe, or Lama Zopa says non-objectifying compassion. That means there's no object out there. You're just sitting there feeling compassionate, you know.
When Amy was here, she did the
Yeah.
Tonglen practice,
Yeah.
starting with actually visualizing yourself in front of yourself,
Yeah.
and doing the Tonglen for yourself. That
Yeah.
way, I found that very powerful.
Yeah, what I do is I visualize myself in my heart, but you can do it in front of yourself. And you know, when I've done long retreats, it's been so helpful to go back and do Tonglen with the 2-year-old me and the 3-year-old me and the 4-year-old me and the 5-year-old me, because there's all these different hurts that happen, you know, and that's where all these things come from, you know, the fears and the angers and the triggers that we have, you know. And so I think that, you know, certain things trigger our anger, certain things trigger our fear, you know. And so the point is to learn how to, like, recognize a trigger and let it go, you know, because it's not out there, you know. And so I did a lot of that, you know, just working with different phases of my life. And just going back, and I mean, it was a long time ago now, but just, and because it seems to be that, you know, I mean, if you study any kind of psychology, it's like it's the stuff that we're holding on to, because, you know, when we're children, we don't have the skills to deal with any of this stuff. So we just find ways of surviving, and they seem to get kind of solidified, you know. So we have these different patterns that we play out, you know. So, but they're not fixed. And it seems to be, you know, I sort of combine psychology and Dharma. It seems to be if you can go back to those points in time where you had some kind of traumatic experience, and just, you don't need to go to a therapist, you can just do Tonglen with that, and just, you know, just as if it was somebody else, you just take on that suffering and give out the love, you know. And the more you can do that, the more you can do that just walking down the street, or, you know, it just becomes more of a habit. Because, I mean, the mind, you know, people are always training their bodies. Well, like, come on now, we can train our minds too, you know. So you can, that's why it's called thought training, mind training. You know, we're training our minds, and that is actually more of the point than the actual Tara practice. You know, the Tara practice is sort of like doing the push-ups or doing the asanas to get you to that place. You know, but the point is to use that method of the nectars and rays pouring in and the prayers and everything to create that inner place of refuge, and eventually then you can, and that's what I said last night. I think that what I found in myself is one of the reasons we can't concentrate very well or sit, you know, this is what I discovered about me. I don't know if it'd be about anybody else, but it was just hard to just be still with myself, because if I was really still with myself, then all those kind of non-verbal, awkward feelings were there. And so it's almost like the mind doesn't want to go there. You know, it just starts to get down into a deep place, and then it hits something, goes, I'm not going there. You know, so it kind of, in order to really get into my tantric practice, I had to do this kind of work, because I couldn't get into a deep concentration state, because I would always have to feel me didn't feel, and it wasn't like like I said, I mean, I had a normal childhood. I was a really popular kid, I was good in school. It wasn't like I, was an orphan that got beat up all the time or anything, but still I had this kind of, I'm not okay kind of thing, So I think that, I really think that's part of renunciation, is just getting into that and working with it. And everybody's different, you'll find your way. But I mean, Tonglen is so bloody simple. All you're doing is breathing, You just breathing in, taking away, and breathing out, giving, and then you just get into the habit of giving. Your heart just naturally gets open, by doing the practice. But you have to practice. It's just not going to happen. You can read about it, go, oh, I'm going to do that. No, it takes years, actually. But even if you just do it when you're on the tube, or do it when, if you're a busy person, you can still find time to do that practice. Because the thing is, what's great about meditation is we're always breathing. We're always breathing. So if you learn to start to pay attention to your breathing, then you can meditate anywhere. But it is really helpful. Even if you don't even if you don't have time to sit, But if you just don't, if you can wake up a little bit before you have to jump out of bed, and just sit there and just think about somebody you love, and just let yourself feel love. And breathe into that. And let that become your bodhicitta motivation. Because to just say, I want to benefit sentient beings, I mean, that's really great. I mean, I'm really glad you're doing that. But when you actually connect a feeling to it, then that really helps to antidote the negative emotions when they come. Because if you can create that inner space, then when stuff happens, you get to the point where you can just breathe. Oh, okay. I'm going to breathe it in, Just breathe it in. And it's almost like there's a little cauldron in there that just takes it. The nectar, they talk about the nectar, it just becomes the nectar, and it becomes this, and is what, I mean, that's what we loved about Lama Yeshe. He was just so blissful, because he was there all the time. He was just radiating bliss, because he had spent so much time working with his mind, and just, because, I mean, bliss is just a state of mind, and you can make it come, you can generate bliss. Think about blissful things, and then use that to kind of like, okay, bring the anger and put it in that, But at the same time, it's really important to, like Fiona was saying, one night she was really angry, and you just have to, sometimes you just have to go out and run around the block, or just like do a whole bunch of prostrations, or do something, because it's so intense, the energy's so intense. But the whole Buddhist thing is to just watch it, and sit with it and feel it and breathe into it, and where is it in your body, And what else?
I think that the anger is sort of, I think as we continue to learn and clear out our own stores of trapped emotions and stuff, then we are less responsive naturally. It's not about suppressing the anger. I mean, you should see me when I get into anger, but I feel very justified, and it's not aimed at anybody other than Monsanto or somebody. And I'm not actually posting it on Facebook, so I'm even safe like that. So, but I am angry about how people are being controlled and poisoned.
Yeah, we all are.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a nice anger, but to be triggered
uncontrollably,
you kind of really rattle in yourself. This is something that kind of one grows out of, isn't it? It's more and more, and I'm not saying it never happens. I'm sure Dalai Lama has a moment when he feels and.
Yeah, he does. He says he does. Yeah. Dalai Lama says he's very patient with big problems, but in the short term he can still get, I mean, it still comes. We live in emotional bodies. Emotions are going to come, and and there's nothing wrong with being emotional. In fact, I would rather see someone, feeling their emotions than not. I think that's healthier. I don't want to see people acting out, and that kind of thing, but I think you can feel your emotions without having to act on them. You know. What do you think?
The meditations on suffering for the Lam Rim very helpful for this, because once you get a grip on your own suffering and understand the cause of it, and then you can see that everybody else is in the same boat and suffering from exactly the same thing, and then you can sort of generate more compassion for yourself and for other people. Well,
karma is really important, to understand karma, I think, you know, and understanding that nothing comes without creating the cause. So when, you know, when someone is doing things that are hurting you or hurting others, you know, if you, it really does help to understand that I created that cause, you know. And also to understand what I really like Marshall Rosenberg, the guy who does nonviolent communication. He says, because I mean that's something you could do here as a group sometime, is study nonviolent communication. It's a really good practice. They were doing it somewhere. One of my friends, Jake, I told him all about it, and he's the teaching assistant now at Nalanda. And he brought in, they did some nonviolent communication workshops at Nalanda, and I thought, you know, it's nice to have little influence places that they're doing that, so that was nice, you know. But what he says is that, let's see if I can get it right, because I haven't thought about it for a while, but when people are being harmful, it's just because they're suffering, and they just don't, and it's like an unskillful way of getting their needs met. You know, everyone has needs. His whole thing is needs. The nonviolent communication is if you can hook into somebody's needs, then rather than being angry at them, you can have empathy for them. So his whole thing is learning how to have empathy for people in all sorts of situations. Because as soon as you can hook into that, then the anger is completely diffused. So if you look into, okay, why is this person being this way? And you like you said, usually it's because they're hurt. And so we were talking about this at lunch. So many people, when they're hurt, the only way they know to feel better about being hurt is to go hurt somebody else. Yeah, so you just have to see them as unskillful, you know, and just think, oh, this poor unskillful person, you know. And for me, I mean, I still have problems with people, and you know, bad things happen to me, and I can say all that stuff, and intellectually it helps, but it takes longer for it to get into my heart. You know, I work with it, and it's really good to at least understand intellectually, but then when I do more like the Tonlin meditations or meditating on compassion, then eventually I can let go. But it takes a little while to completely let go when someone's doing really bad things to you, you know. But you can, you know, if you try, you can do that. And that's why Dharma is so precious, you know, because in this day, there's so much conflict going on everywhere, you know. And I really believe that the more we work on ourselves, not that we can just only work on ourselves, but I really believe what His Holiness says, you know, that as we work on ourselves, we're influencing the whole world, you know, because we all resonate with each other. We're all connected on some level, you know. So you never have to feel like I'm just taking care of myself, you know, because I feel like the more we get the courage to take care of ourselves, it empowers the rest of the world to get courage to take care of themselves, you know. So never feel like, oh, I'm being self-absorbed or narcissistic or whatever. I mean, you can go that way, but you don't have to. You know, it can be a healthy thing. So, what do you think, Fiona?
Yes.
You want to add something?
No, I just agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah, because I don't, you know.
Sorry to think something is, and then it went because I was busy listening. But,
yeah.
Yeah, I think Dharma gives you, it helps to give you a reason to persevere.
Yeah.
When you are processing things, you know, and to know that it will be worthwhile, it is worthwhile doing, even though you might not see the light at the end of the tunnel. But for a long time, it just going to keep going.
Yeah, it does give you a long-term goal. Yeah. So. Well, I don't know. To me, that's just sort of the heart of the whole issue, isn't it? I mean, because that's really what we want, is just to be better people. And I guess my question is that how do you inspire people to want to become better people? You know, we're naturally that way. That's why we're here. You know, but if you were, say, a school teacher and you had 30 children, what would you do to want to inspire them to want to be a better person? Because a lot of people just don't care. I mean, I don't know the answer. I'm asking you.
My experience with school children is
Yeah.
I'm not the right person to try.
Or even adults.
I think a lot of people, I think everyone, might not be aspiring to become a better person, but they aspire to be rid of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very good spark mechanism for, you know, igniting that commitment, and perhaps, they'll stumble on Dharma in one form or another, and start applying the practices, isn't it?
Well, that's what's so great about all this new ecumenical? No, yeah, Dharma stuff, or the secular Dharma, because it's like we could kind of like see through all this Tibetan religious cultural trappings, you know, and realize that the nuts and bolts of it is just actually this amazing system of thought training and transformation. But for so many people, it's too much like the Catholic Church, or too much like, you know, monks and incense and these weird things, and, you know, green ladies, and, you know, it's just a little bit too weird for most people, you know. And I think what got me was I met Lama Yeshe, and he was just such an overwhelming, amazing person. I was like, I don't care what this is. I'm going to go find out. You know, it was really like that. You know, I want to know what he does. You know, how did you get to be like that? You know, so I was able to sort of put up with all that. I mean, it's not really my thing to do religion, you know. But I did it because Lama was such an inspiring, amazing person. And then I met other Geshis, and then I met Lama Zopa, and I was just like, wow, what is this? You know, these are such amazing human beings. And Lama Yeshe gave us the job, and I don't think we've done it yet, of how to take this information and put it into a different cultural context, you know. And so far, all we're doing is mimicking the Tibetans still, you know. And Lama was like, I mean, that's why Osel's so different. Osel's not into it at all. You know, he's definitely Lama, you know. And I think that, you know, we don't really, you know, I mean, I guess for me, I thought, well, we have to get realizations before we can actually create a Dharma culture that fits in our culture, you know. That's what I thought anyway. But anyway, I was just talking about now, I mean, Tantra isn't there, but there's all this like mindfulness stuff around, you know, that seems to be really picking up now. I mean, in the United States, you get mindfulness apps and the mindfulness this, and it's like yoga, you know. First yoga was this nice, you know, thing about transforming your mind, and now everyone's into, like, you know, super biceps and triceps and abs and, you know, prancing around the place in their yoga clothes, you know. And I really hope that that doesn't happen to mindfulness, because yoga didn't start out as a way to be beautiful, you know. Yoga started out as a way to transform your mind.
I have a feeling that mindfulness is going that way.
Yeah, but I don't know how, yeah.
Do you want to try and do the compassion training that Tuten Jimpa's developed with Stanford University? Try and introduce that here.
Oh, that's really great. That's really great, because I think what he's doing is fantastic.
Yeah.
I also think what we're saying about, as individuals, if we go through that journey of healing, then naturally, because we're using the Dharma as Buddhists, because a lot of our problems come from our culture.
Yeah.
And the damage it's done to people. So I think, like, if we as individuals heal ourselves, then the Dharma will evolve to reflect Western culture.
Yeah, I do too. It's just a matter of time, really, isn't it? You know. And also, as people, like I was in Nepal. I met this wonderful woman named Françoise, who's actually coming to Land of Joy, and she was a school teacher, and she told me about all the cool things she did with kids that were Dharma, you know, that had nothing to do with Buddhism. I mean, it's universal education. And so I think it also happens that way. Like if you really bring Dharma into your life, no matter what your work is, you know, working hospital, working, you know, whatever, it's going to come out through you, you know, and so it's going to work like that. And I'm not knocking our tradition, you know. I mean, it's nice to keep this, all this, you know, stuff, and it's important to keep it alive. But I also think it's important for us to have our alternative kind of work, you know. Yeah. I don't know how we got, yeah, what?
I was reminded of what you said, when you said, how do we get people interested? Remind me what the Dalai Lama said of being wisely selfish. If you can get people to think there's some interest in it for them, rather than they can perhaps find that as a way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know, you guys, do you know about the Potential Project? It's a young Danish man. It's just really taking off. And he, something I always thought would be so cool to do, he developed 2 programs. One is just mindfulness, and the other one is basically the 3 principal aspects of the path. And he put it into secular terms, and he's teaching it in corporations, big corporations. And I thought, wow, that's really where it needs to go, you know. And at first it was just a little bit, but now, you know, he's from Copenhagen. But I just found out a couple days ago, I was talking to some friends of mine on the phone, and he's actually moved to New York City, and he's written a book. And I just think, whoa, man, I'm just really praying for that kid, because, I mean, he's not a kid, he's probably 40. But that's, I mean, I used to think, you know, the place where we really need Dharma is like in Monsanto, you know. So I'm really pleased with his, it's just the potentialproject.org, you can look it up. Potential Project. And I think he's training more people, and it's good because you can actually make money now. You know, you can go. It's like you become a consultant in these big businesses and go in and charge them tons of money and teach them to meditate and stuff like that. And I just think that's so cool because it's like getting them in their own. What is it?
Microcosm, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like using their culture to transform their culture, which is like brilliant, you know. Yeah, yeah. So, so that's one area too. That's
like being wisely selfish, like, you know,
yeah. That's where because that's what he's doing. He's showing them, you know, that if you do this stuff, you know, you're going to make more money, but it's also going to, whether you know it or not, you're going to get transformed, you know. And it's like, what's your name again? Leah. What Leah was saying, that nobody really wants to suffer. And that's what the Dalai Lama says. And even those corporate guys, they suffer all the time too, you know. They're always suffering. I mean, everybody's suffering, you know. So, yeah. Right. What else? Anything else?
Thank you.
I don't know if that helped, but
It is.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you just have to put a little time into it. And I think taking refuge, as particularly with Tara, really helps with the fear factor. You know? And part of it is too, it's almost like, well, what have you got to lose? You know, you have to talk to yourself. You know, you can't, you just, when the fear comes up, it's like, okay, well, what am I afraid of? What am I going to, you know, what is creating this fear? And a lot of times you don't know, but if you just ask yourself and you just sit and meditate, sometimes it might take a few days. But if that's what you're, you know, wanting to ask your unconscious, and you put the question out there, and then don't struggle for an answer. Just put the question. It's like you know, typing into a Google. You know, just put it in there, and it's not going to come back right away. But if you put it in and just sit and just kind of have your bodhicitta motivation, then a lot of times, if that's why I wanted to stress those, I'll tell them again, about the 4 kind of factors when you're doing your breathing meditation, whether it's Tonglen or whatever. But if you have that kind of openness without expectation, which when you first say it, you don't really know what it means. You know, what does that mean? But if you just kind of tell yourself about it and sort of look for it, then you'll begin to see that it's like an inquisitiveness that is just very subtle, just sort of being open to and listening, You know, listening to yourself is a really important skill to learn. You know, because Lama, and I'm still really working on that one, because Lama used to always say, "You know, dear." You know, he would say, "Check up, you know, dear." And it's like, "Oh, I don't know." You know, because one of the things we really don't have is self-confidence. At least I don't. You know, and to really trust that I do know. But I think that the more you take refuge, and the more you do these, like the practice will do again, you know, with the right nectars and rays. I mean, it seems very simple. It seems like, oh, why are we doing this? But there's something very profound about it. And when you do it, you know, it doesn't matter. I mean, they all have, it's all the same, right? They all do it. All the different deities do it. But the more you do that, there's just something about the power of the lineage and the power of your wish. Particularly if you, like I said in the beginning, set that intention. The intention is really important, because it's like programming your brain to go in that direction. But you set that intention, then it's going to happen. Because karma is infallible. You know, if you start creating the cause for something, it's going to happen. You can't stop it. So all we're doing when we're doing these green tar practices is creating the cause for our future result. You know, and you're laying, because everything starts in the realm of the subtle realm. You know, the subtle body, the subtle mind, the realm of dependent arising and emptiness. There's just this really subtle realm that exists in the universe, that holds the universe. And all the material stuff comes out of that. So when you're doing these practices, it's almost like a bridge between the two worlds, between the material world and the subtle world of dependent arising and emptiness. But because the dependent arising emptiness is a law of nature, it's not a religious made-up phenomenon. It's physics. You know, it's like the laws of thermodynamics. It's physics. It is the law of the universe. So because that's true, then if you create the cause for something, it's going to happen. So be really careful what you want, what you intend, you know. And I meant to tell everybody to bring a paper and pen. I forgot, because I wanted to do this exercise of really, you know, while we're here sitting down and thinking about what, maybe we'll take a break and we can find paper and pens for everybody. And just take some time to actually sit down and think about what it is that's important to come into your life. You know, because a lot of times we don't make that commitment to ourselves. You know, and then the first one would be the one, you know, okay, I want to get over my fear, you know, of being open with myself. You know, that's the first step. You know, so ask, you know, you can ask yourself, what am I afraid of? You know, and you know, and that's also why emptiness is important, because the more you meditate on emptiness, the less there is of the grasping, the less the fear is real. You know, because the fear is coming from ego grasping, you know, so as that releases, then the fear releases and everything begins to release. So it's all interconnected, you know. But that's a really important point is, I mean, karma and emptiness, to me, I mean, the West already has compassion. You know, Jesus was the king of compassion. You know, I mean, and I think Jesus actually is better than Buddha in a lot of ways when it comes to compassion, the teachings of Christ. And I think that karma and emptiness are in Christianity. It's just that those Jews back then weren't right enough to get what Jesus was saying. I really believe that. I mean, if you read the book of John, you can see it in there. You know, but somehow it never got in. They didn't understand, you know. He was only around for, what, 3 years? How long was he teaching?
It could be 3 years, it could even be 1 year.
Yeah, so he wasn't around long enough for them to really get it, you know. Yeah. But if... But what the Dharma, I feel, has to really offer is karma and emptiness, you know. Because if you understand those concepts, then it's so powerful. Because one, you can create the cause for anything to happen. And two, knowing about emptiness, you just can completely get yourself out of the way. You know, because really what is our biggest obstacle is our own self-cherishing. And I like Rob Priest. He doesn't use the word self-cherishing. He says self-preoccupation. Because self-cherishing makes it seem like there's something wrong with loving yourself, you know. Self-cherishing is not our problem. Self-cherishing, the fact that we don't have self-cherishing is our problem. So I really don't like that Buddhist translation. It's another one that's, you know, maybe the words are there, but it's the wrong connotation. But self-preoccupation, you know, self-centeredness, you know, me, you know. And it comes from fear. You know, at the root of it all is fear, you know. So that's why refuge is so important. The more we take refuge, the more we can let go of the fear, and the more we can develop. You know, I think refuge is really undervalued. You know, we just like go, okay, refuge. You know, but
the whole story, isn't it?
It is. It's really a big part of Dharma. You know, I mean, all the lights and colors, all that. I mean, there's nothing without refuge. You know. So. Yeah. Okay. What do you think, Adam? You're smiling over there.
Not very much.
Well, why don't we get up for a minute? It's been an hour. Unless there's more. Anybody have more? I mean, I end up doing all the talking. I wish somebody else would say something.
Just what struck me is how doing a sadhana like this to understand the death process and also the bodhicitta and emptiness. You really need a basis in the Lam Rim, I think. To understand
You can't do any tantric practice without a basis of Lam Rim. You know, that's why they always, before, you know, if I had been doing this proper, I would have given a talk on 3 principal aspects of the path last night. But when I looked around the room, I thought, oh, these people, they know this, you know. Because really, I mean, usually before any tantric empowerment, they give a talk on the 3 principal aspects of the path. You know, because you can't do this without that. Yeah. And I mean, definitely, I mean, you do the whole Lam Rim and then comes these kind of practices, you know. But, yeah. You know, Lam Rim is, it really transforms your worldview, you know, and it just, I don't know, I mean, I've been doing it for so long now, I can't remember what it was like beforehand, but, you know, it's quite liberating, isn't it? Yeah.
The more you look into it, the more links be found between different parts of it.
Yeah, because really it's just kind of one thing. I mean, I feel like it's actually just sort of one whole experience, but you have to know all the pieces of it, you know? So, yeah, and you can just study it endlessly and meditate on it for your whole life and, you know, read different books about it, and I'm never bored reading Lam Rim, you know? And His Holiness says you can receive the teachings over and over and over and over and over again, you know. And each time it goes a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper. So, yeah. So, yeah, okay, well let's take a little break and then what should we do? Are we too full to do a little bit of Qigong? Should we do a little Qigong, or are we too full for that before we sit down and meditate again? No.
Did it start the next session, maybe?
That's what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah, I don't mean right now, but, you know, is it time for a break? What's our thing here? We're supposed to go till 3:30.
You're in charge, Paula.
Yeah, I know, but it feels like we should have a break now and then come back and do a little Qigong and then do another practice. Unless, I know, I mean, do you want to just, I mean, this sadhana we can do in 15 minutes. Do you want to just do a 15-minute, do the sadhana one more time? I think it's good. Yeah. Do you want to just stand up for a minute? Are you happy to sit down? Yeah, stand up. Yeah. Because it's good to do it more times, you know. The more times you do it. And, I mean, you can stretch this out for an hour, or you can do it in 15 minutes, too, you know, so.
Stretching my calves.
So I'm going to say again the 4 points that I'd like to think about to take away with you. These come from the Kagyu tradition of the kind of the inner environment or to create when you're doing your simple breathing practice or reciting mantras. And just this comes from teachings of Trungpa Rinpoche, but I'm sure it's just kind of general Kagyu teachings. But that you're sitting watching your mind, and minds are many multifaceted. They can do all kinds of things at once. So, and in the beginning it might seem a bit odd, but if you just kind of entertain these things, as you practice more and more, you begin to identify the different factors. So, the first one is, with about a quarter of your mind, maybe you concentrate on the technique, whatever it is. It's Tonglen, or it's reciting the Tara mantra, or watching your breath. So, that's kind of the main thing, you're making that going on. And that in itself is, we can even talk about that, because there's like mindfulness and awareness and all the different aspects of that. But, okay, so that's the technique. But within the sphere of the technique, there's another part of you that has to be checking and feeling your body, Let's see, am I tensing up my shoulders? Am I tensing my stomach? Are my legs relaxed? Am I starting to, go like this? Am I going like this? Because we do all these things, because we start concentrating, And so just with another part of your mind, you're just paying attention to staying relaxed. Because relaxation is the key to meditation, which is another reason to do yoga, because yoga teaches you how to relax your body. And then with another part of your mind is this thing we've been talking about making friends with yourself. Like, pay attention to because, part of the technique is, you watch your mind wander off and you bring your mind back. Well, what kind of voice is bringing your mind back? Is it a gentle, kind, open voice, or is it, oh, you screwed up again, Because a lot of us have that voice, because we had teachers and parents, and you really need to, you can't make that voice go away, but you can kind of love it away. You have to, oh, I don't need to do this. I don't need to be this kind of person, because, we might try to cover it up, but still, that's the inner critic, they call it, So you have to be non-judgmental, completely non-judgmental. There's no right, there's no wrong. We're just playing, we're just sitting here, and it's okay if our mind goes off for 5 minutes and we're planning what we're going to do tomorrow, and that's right, I'm supposed to be meditating right now. It's all right. That's what we do. That's what mind does. Mind is naturally distracted, And then the other one is this thing about of just kind of being open to listening and hearing, and just kind of, it's just sort of like a sense of opening yourself up to the universe kind of thing, So if you can, because otherwise a lot of times we get way too focused on this breathing thing, or whatever that we're doing, and it doesn't have the whole body awareness going on. So I just want to drive that in.
Can I just say before
Yeah.
we start, you just reminded me of something, talking about the judgmental mind,
Yeah.
and sort of chastising that,
Yeah.
And I remember many years back when I started working with practices of actually addressing that side of the head and the mind that was actually inherited from the way that I've been treated in the past. And I've found this technique, which was dealing with this part of the mind as if dealing with the child that needed to be incorporated into the nice social environment. So every time I heard this little voice come up, or the big voice, or the nasty voice, whatever it was, I just say, shh, and sort of say to, like training a dog, you know, sit, put. No begging now, grown-ups are dealing, yeah? Sit and watch, sit and watch, sit and watch. And it was something that one had to do, like 20 times a minute, and not only meditating, shopping, dealing, brushing teeth, all that sort of stuff, all is meditation in the end of the day. But really kind of being vigilant with it. And then you find yourself telling, kind of warning the mind 3 times an hour, then once every 3 hours, then once a day, and next thing you know, you haven't noticed the mind pop up like that for 3 weeks.
It's true.
Isn't it?
The only thing I would do differently is, rather than, going kind of being, because that's still a little bit judgmental, I would be more like, oh, how are
but
you?
that was a jokey,
Yeah.
like,
Oh, I
watch,
see.
what's
Yeah.
going on? Be quiet,
Yeah.
watch,
Yeah.
Be quiet, watch.
Yeah,
So
because my thing is to be more gentle with it.
yeah, I was. I'm just kind of being a little bit describing it.
Yeah,
I'm
but
very gentle with
but
my
that's
dog.
very. I mean, you really have to. You definitely have to be on top of it.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's. Yeah. Never mind. Let's go, huh? We just begin by settling, getting our posture, back straight and head slightly down, and feeling coming into our bodies, because that's another thing as Westerners, we're pretty disembodied. So you can just become aware of your toes and your knees, your calves, thighs, your hip bones. Notice your stomach muscles. If you're allowing, make sure your pants are loose and just let your belly be as big as it wants to be. Nobody's seeing. And kind of rotate around on your sit bones a little bit to find a place that's the most comfortable, that allows your body to relax. You might want to shift your pelvis back or forward so you find a place that feels kind of comfortable, and feel your 2 sitting bones there, and your thighs relaxing on the seat. And then notice your spine, the whole spine, kind of going up the spine, all the way up to the top where it meets the head. So you're kind of tuning into the whole, from the tailbone all the way up to the top of the skull. And allowing there to be some space between the top of the neck and the skull. And breathing in the belly. And allowing the breath to feel like from the inside out, because you're breathing in your belly, and then also breathing into your ribs. Your ribs cage opens up, and your shoulder blades are just allowed to fall and relax. You're not holding your shoulders, because you're breathing from your belly and up through your lungs and your rib cage, and so that breath is just holding you up, and so you can let your shoulders fall open and feel space between those shoulder blades. Let your ears and eyes and nose open, your third eye, the crown of your head. So you're really feeling that your mind is in your body. Taking your awareness down your arms to your thumbs and fingers and the palms of your hands. Then just become aware of the center of your chest and your heart. And think about someone that you love. And see if you can connect that with a feeling in your heart of openness and love. And then above the crown of my head, or in the space in front of me, above me, I visualize a lotus and a moon disk, like life-size. And upon these is the great treasure of compassion, the Aryatara, mother of all enlightened beings, who is one with my kind root guru. Aryatara is female in aspect, green in color, and seated in the dancing posture within a rainbow aura. Her left leg is crossed inward and her right leg is outstretched. Her left hand is at her heart in the mudra symbolizing the triple gem and holds the stem of a blue upali flower. Her right hand, extended over her right knee, is in the mudra of granting sublime realizations. She is beautifully adorned with jeweled ornaments and heavenly scarves. So really imagine that Tara is here, and that she's oneness with the root guru and oneness with all the Buddhas. At her heart is a lotus and a moon seat, on which stands a radiant green syllable tum. Rays of green light radiate in all directions from the tum and invoke all the enlightened beings of the 10 directions. And they all absorb into Aryatara and become one. And we request avatar to please remain with me in my head or my heart until I attain enlightenment. And then take a moment to make a strong intention for this session. I mean, we always have bodhicitta motivation. We always want to realize all the stages of the path. But, you know, your own particular needs and aspirations that you would like to create the cause to manifest by purifying and accumulating in this session. Then take refuge. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the practice of giving and other perfections, I become a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. And then meditating on the meaning of those words, what it feels like to take refuge, to be totally protected and cared for by tribe. And sharing that with all sentient beings. In the seven-limb prayer, with my body, speech, and mind, I humble myself to you. I offer all wondrous things, both real and imagined. All mistakes and offenses amassed from beginningless time I regret. I rejoice in all virtuous actions of holy and ordinary beings. Gurus and Buddhas, please remain until samsara ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for all sentient beings. Everyone's and my virtues I dedicate to enlightenment. And now we offer everything, all the wonderful things in the universe, as well as all of our inner offering is all of our delusions transformed also. Oh, the ground is blessed with scent and with flowers strewn, adorned with Mount Meru, the four lands, sun and moon, transformed as a pure land, and offered. May all wandering beings enjoy this Buddha land. All those objects of my mind's three poisons, coveted, friend, foe, and stranger, body, wealth, worldly pleasures, without a feeling of loss, I surrender. Receive them, please, and free all beings from their bondage. Please bless my mind and the mind of all sentient beings to be free from all the wrong views, from incorrect pure devotion up to the subtle dual view. Please bless my mind and the mind of all sentient beings to receive the entire stages of the path, from Guru devotion up to the unified state of Vajradhara. And please bless my mind and the mind of all sentient beings to be free from all obstacles and hindrances along the path. Idam Guru Radhananda Lakam Niryatayami. Tara has heard our request. And so the purification comes. So white light and nectar emanates from the Om at Aryatara's brow and enters my brow. And there's a couple new people here this afternoon, so the way you visualize that, Sangam Shay said, is when it's a really foggy evening and you have the headlights on and you can see the droplets of moisture in the light. You know what that looks like? So that's what it looks like. That's what's pouring into you. So the light is the emptiness and the nectar is the bliss. So emptiness and bliss in the form of white light from the Aryatara's brow chakra are pouring into our brow chakra. And we feel that our body is completely purified and becomes one with Tara's holy body. So any sickness we have, any physical obstacles, any karmas that were created from the past of killing or stealing or sexual misconduct, completely being purified. And we feel our body just being irradiating with white light. And then red light and nectar emanates from the Ah at Aryatara's throat and enters my throat, and my speech is purified completely and becomes one with Tara's holy speech. So all of our mistaken speech, harsh speech, divisive speech, senseless speech, lying, all the karmas created from that have been purified through the blessings of Tara and our wish. And blue light and nectar is dark blue light. Emanates from the home at Aryatara's heart and enters my heart. My mind is purified completely and becomes one in essence with Tara's holy mind. And then all three colors of light and nectar emanate from the Om Ahum, Aryatara's three chakras, and completely purifies all my delusions and subtle obscurations to omniscience. My body, speech, and mind become one in essence with Aryatara's Vajra body, Vajra speech, and Vajra mind. And then the Venerable Aryatara melts from the top down and the bottom up, like when you watch fog disappear on the windshield and you turn on the defroster on your windshield. She's made of light, and the light just sort of dissolves into the seed syllable tam. And the tam is the nature of all the Buddha's qualities. And even the tam becomes very, very small, and it just becomes like bright, bright green laser light about the size of a mustard seed. But very powerful. Lami used to say like nuclear energy powerful, that much power, you know, in that tiny little drop. Nuclear energy power of enlightenment to blast away all of our delusions. And not only our delusions, but our disturbed winds. It comes to the crown of our heads, and goes down through the crown, the throat, and settles in the middle of our heart chakra. We receive all the great blessings of Tara. Just imagine, you know. Just have faith and imagine. And instantly, all the mundane conceptions that I and all other phenomena are self-existent, together with my dualistic mind and its views, disappear, becoming completely empty, and not even a trace remains. So if you were to do the death dissolution, this is where you do it. And then when you get to the end, you concentrate one pointedly on the empty state, the wisdom that is indistinguishably one with Aryatara's omniscient mind. Out of that emptiness, my wisdom manifests instantly as Aryatara, seated on a lotus and a moon cushion. At her heart is another lotus and moon, upon which in the center stands the syllable Tam, surrounded in a clockwise direction by the syllables of the mantra, Om Tari Tu Tari Turi Soha. The Taman mantra are manifestations of Guru Tara's holy mind, which is totally unified with my mind. And from the green wisdom light radiates from all the letters of the mantra out in all the directions and touches the hearts. You can just do this now before we recite the mantra. So let's just do this before we recite the mantra this time. So green wisdom light radiates from all the letters out into directions and touches the hearts of all sentient beings and purifies all mistaken karmas, gross delusions, sickness, spirit harm, and subtle obscurations to omniscience, and bringing all the conditions needed for enlightenment, including the conditions for having a new building that the center owns. So then you can kind of like go back to the very beginning when we had this intention, our own personal intentions. Well, you can see that going out to not only yourself, but it's probably something everybody needs. So you're seeing that going for all sentient beings. And we can think on these light rays goes out lots of qualified teachers, great teachings, places to do retreat, food, clothing, shelter, healthy body and mind, total inspiration of bodhicitta. And we just imagine that all sentient beings are able to practice Dharma and realize all the stages of the path. And we just imagine that then they receive the 4 empowerments and do the practices of Tantra, of Tara, and then everyone becomes Tara. So then we just imagine that we're surrounded in a sea of green Taras. It's all the 6 realms beings transformed into Taras. And then again, the light goes out from the Tam in our heart, Tam and the mantra, and makes offerings to all of these Buddhas. All the beings have become Tara. So just offer everything, all the sensual delights. Traditionally we have, flowers, incense, light, perfume, food, and music, but you can also make it personal. If you like ice cream, I offer ice cream. If you like music, music. If you like, clothes, offer clothes. If you like cars, offer Maseratis. Whatever. Just use your imagination and just make lots of offerings to the Taras. If you like yoga classes, 100 years of free yoga classes. Whatever it is, Beautiful places to do retreats and. The Buddhas don't need it. We need to make offerings to them. Zillions and billions of dollars and beautiful, gompas, and just offer everything. Partners, if you want a partner, offer, the perfect partner to all the Buddhas, the perfect consort. And then all the enlightened beings in the aspect of green tar are extremely pleased, and they experience simultaneously great bliss and emptiness. And then they shower a rain of blessings down upon me, bestowing the superlative qualities of Aryatara's holy body, holy speech, holy mind, omniscient wisdom, infinite compassion, and supreme power in the form of blissful light rays. So now we recite the mantra, and as we recite the mantra, we feel like we're being just, we're just like standing in it's easy to, if you're British, you know all about rain. So you just stand in the rain and just feel the rain pouring down you, only it's like blissful rain, blissful rain of enlightenment activity. And just let yourself imagine that everything you need for enlightenment is just pouring into you as you recite the mantra, and think that we're realizing all the stages of the path. Om Tari Tu Jari Turi So Om Tari Tu Jari Turi So. So this is when you can let yourself, let the fear disappear and all the obstacles, having love for yourself, just feel all that being just melting away by all this blissful energy of Tara. Just allow yourself to let it go. all the obstacles that we create for ourselves, just let them go. Om Jari Tu Jari Jari Saha. And then if I'm visualizing myself as Tara, I dissolve into the Tara and mantra at my heart. Otherwise you just start there. In my heart, the lotus dissolves into the moon, which dissolves into Tara. This dissolves into the lotus and moon in her heart, and which is the mantra. And the mantra dissolves into the Tam in the center, and the Tam slowly dissolves into emptiness. And then instantly I rise as Aryatara, as myself or else in my heart. Just spontaneously do the works for sentient beings. And then we just rejoice how wonderful it is we have this opportunity to create the causes for enlightenment in such an enjoyable way. This beautiful Lady Tara, to bring us bliss and enjoyment and the realization of emptiness. By this merit may I become Mother Tara and lead each and every being to that state. May the precious Bodhi mind not arisen rise and grow, and what has arisen not decline, but remain forevermore. I'm feeling the emptiness. Okay, tea time.
On the note of tea, very random. I just closed the conference and I had catering 40 and it should have been catering 20. So I brought a load of cake with me.
Oh, great. Thank you. Just remember when you're eating, you're offering bliss to Tara, your heart, right? So we'll just take like a 15-20 minute break, and then we'll just come back and do the sadhana one more time. And 'cause it seems like the more we do it, it gets better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's the kind of thing you have to do. That's why we do it, we do it all day tomorrow too, and then by the end it'll feel pretty good.